ecosystem. So I think, as startups, in terms of go-to-market, if we could really reinvent or rethink, and COVID has given us a very good opportunity to do
Yes,
that.
it has.
How do we rethink and renovate how we sell technology or solutions to different businesses? And that's what I think about go-to-market.
Okay, at Get-Funded Africa, personally as well, I'm also a big fan on businesses actually focusing on their core objectives and their core businesses, corporations. And, they should just rely on partnerships and the kind of outsourced resources that Somets has just told us about. Somet, thank you very much for that. The next question, once again, founders and startups, I'm sure you've seen a lot of pitches where founders talk about how they have this competitive advantage that nobody in the next 10 years or on the continent can ever catch up with. How do you suggest or advise founders to actually recognize if they genuinely have a competitive advantage in the marketplace?
I think, as I said earlier, there's probably nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
So in terms of competitive advantage, you want to be able to, and I think for me, this is my opinion, if you're able to do something cheaper, better, faster, and I'm borrowing these phrases from a speaker, Vusi, if you're able to do something cheaper, better, faster, irrespective of whether you have competitors or not, then that's your competitive advantage. And I think another way to look at it is sometimes the people we think are competitors are not necessarily our competitors. They actually could be our partners. I know a lot of times, people look at these big corporates and they look at the Googles and the Microsofts, and we definitely do compete at certain places, but at certain points we work together because we do realize at the end of the day, people that have their strengths in one place and other people have their strengths in others. In fact, that's a very good example. Microsoft is very strong in terms of enterprises, while Google is very focused on supporting direct consumers. So, how do we piece together and work together and sort of collaborate at certain points? So I think there's that element of, yes, I have a competitive advantage in my market. I can get my solution out there faster, cheaper, and better. But also then you can turn it also to the flip side.
Playing Africa v Kissing.
Sorry about that.
Okay, fantastic. That's not a problem at all. Okay, you've spoken extensively about lots of underutilization in terms of what some startups actually can get from organizations like Microsoft in terms of their service offerings. Next question again. I think that actually aligns to that. So I want to ask you, as a strategy, how can entrepreneurs and founders actually move like an existing technology into a new business area? What kind of opportunities should they look out for in Africa through organizations and service offerings of organizations like Microsoft?
Sorry, could you say that again? I lost you a bit.
Okay, how can entrepreneurs and founders move existing technology into new business areas as a way of creating new opportunities for themselves? And how can they utilize organizations or the service offerings of organizations like Microsoft to achieve this?
it's interesting that, in the last couple of months as we went through this pandemic, it's forced us to do quite some interesting things. And I look at it in three ways. There's that response area that we rushed to, try and experiment with all these new technologies that can enable people recover from COVID. And then, we reinvented some of the things that we did. Now we are doing this interview, online and not necessarily in person.
Yeah.
And I think the stage that we're now missing is, reinventing new business models. So I think there is definitely a huge opportunity for people to take, the existing solutions or businesses that they had into new markets. Now you don't have to be taken up doing online meetings as the new normal. So I think that in itself just creates the right environment to allow people to take their existing solutions and really scale them. I think it's the ability to be quite agile and fast in terms of how you take up opportunities. That is very key. But also rethink how certain things are done. I'll give you a good example. There's all these technologies that people use. Actually, here's a good example. If you look at the way we designed office spaces were designed, and technology was designed around physical parameters of offices. So, we had to get employees to clock in and, do a fingerprint scan on the door. You actually had to see a person to assume that they actually work. But, now COVID, it does not force people to now go online. So how do you maintain the same, how do I make sure people are working without necessarily forcing them down to do a call every 8 o'clock and every 5 p.m. Realistically, that's not possible. So I think there has to be a bit of reinventing that needs to be done for us to take those interesting opportunities. So look, I'll give a good example of a technology that Microsoft has that, as much as it's been there for years, people still thoroughly underuse it. Active Directory, which manages identity. Identity will now become a huge thing because now everybody's online. So if I join this meeting and just change my name and never turn on my video, you will never know who I am. And that poses itself a challenge. So you kind of have to start reinventing, those traditional business models or the way we did business into a model that now actually will make sense. Here's actually a very interesting analogy. So a lot of churches have taken the same sermons that they used to do and just dumped them all on YouTube. So you have this video that you watch every Sunday or a live stream, and then that's it. But, churches now have to think, how do I keep my congregation, engaged with me throughout the entire week? Because now they're not waiting till Sunday to actually see me, or depending on the religion, which day you choose to worship. So now they have to find interesting ways to keep me as a church member very engaged. What that opens up the ability for me to do is I can be a member of a church in the US. I can tithe there without ever meeting anyone from that church or actually physically going there. So those are very interesting ways where, we took the old traditional ways of doing things and we went online. But what you start realizing quickly is sometimes that doesn't work. And I can go on and on with several examples around that, but I'll stop there for now.
Somet is acknowledging that even churches in this day and age have to be innovative when it comes to technology.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, So typically for a startup pitched in front of you, what excites you? What are you looking for? What kind of objectives? What kind of innovation are you looking for in startup pitches?
And I think I mentioned this a bit earlier. I think for me, spending the last couple of years listening to every pitch, definitely you will come across what I call pitch entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs that will go pitch from one event to the other, and you kind of pick up a thing or two after a couple of those. I think for me, what gets me really excited is a founder that is solving a very specific problem. A lot of pitches that I listen to, it's somebody trying to do an Uber for that. I feel like that is not necessarily innovative, and it's a bit too broad. And sometimes you find people come up very broad pitches to the point where I cannot narrow down, what exactly is their key focus. So that clarity in terms of, as a startup, what you do, that is exciting for me. Number two, I think where it gets also exciting for me is where it actually has a social impact. How does a thing that you do translate into impact? And sometimes it could be impact in just transforming how a business does its operations, or it could be transforming how they do their products, or transforming how a company engages its employees. It could be something really tiny and specific, but it has an impact down the line, and the ability for that founder to actually clearly communicate that, I think, is very key. And unfortunately, sometimes we can see through all the many buzzwords. And I think one of the advantages that I've picked up over time is I have a developer background, and so sometimes I hear somebody put IoT, blockchain, and AI all in the same sentence, and I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. Or using blockchain where blockchain is designed for where there's lack of trust. But if you tell me you have a business that there's already trust, why blockchain? So I always constantly ask the question, why that? So I think the thing that gets me excited is if I see a founder who's figured out why they're doing what they're doing and not too focused on how they or what they do, then I think that for me is key. And then the potential for that to grow, and if they're thinking along those lines, they're not seeing now and here and today, but looking at how does this become impactful 5, 6, 7 years down the line. I think that gets me very excited.
Okay,
and definitely partly also the technology.
Yeah, of course, that's basic. Thank you very much for that. So next question now, digital transformation. Africa, where is Africa?
And I know some people will crucify me for saying this. We are all still trying to figure it out. I don't think we've 100% figured out digital transformation. And I think COVID has really shown people that, as much as you thought you'd figured it out, nope. You kind of have to now think about it again. I think Africa is still trying to figure it out. We're sort of in the right path, but a couple of things will still need to work through. And a huge part of that is our mindset shift. For the technology, I mean, Africa is very, famous for leapfrogging technology, which is a good thing. But if you get, and I always have this cycle, and I always talk about this, if we bring in all the tools and technology, but we haven't figured out the people part and the processes, then it completely breaks down. So there has to be that delicate balance between, there's all these technology that we can jump on and get excited about and do, but where does it make actually sense? Does this technology transform people? I think Microsoft has this saying, we think of transformation in 4 pillars. How do you transform the product that you serve? How do you engage your employees different? How do you transform or engage your customers differently? And how do you optimize operations? If you can figure out how to do those 4 things, then that's the whole canvas of digital transformation. Now, how and what the technology you choose to use, that is easy to implement if you've been able to figure out the tool, the processes, and the people. Because, I mean, I always say this, never underestimate human ingenuity. We can bring in all these tools and no one will use them. We can bring in all these processes and then no one will use them. So at the center of it has to be people, and there has to be that balance.
Thank you. I think the last part of your answer actually is like a summary of advice for any existing or potential founder seeking to start a venture that is going to be hinged or leveraging technology heavily. Thank you for that, Somet. Now, outside of Microsoft, outside of the tech guru, who is Somet? What other interests do you have? Your hobbies, literature, pastimes, philanthropy? Can we get to know you better?
Yes. So I have dabbled around with musical instruments. It's a bit of a little passion of mine. I'm a
play the
sucker
piano.
for classical music.
Same here, same here. I used to play the piano when I was much younger. Same here, classical music, very nice, yeah.
Yeah, but also one of the other things of which now my job gives me the opportunity to do is I love traveling. Unfortunately now because of COVID, I'm stuck in Kenya. But also even with that, still I take time to travel within the country that I am in. And Kenya is a very good example. There are really beautiful places that most people never go. We always visit the large cities and where all the hubs are, but we never go outside to see the beauty of what this continent has to offer. I've had the opportunity, to travel and see various parts of the continent, everywhere from Morocco to Lagos to Mozambique to Kigali and even some in Europe and the US. And you will realize once you go outside the continent that we are quite a blessed continent.
Yes,
so I always encourage everyone, if you can travel. We have a very beautiful continent.
And life is short, of course. See as many places as we can. I also wanted to ask, for Reinventing Africa, what advice do you have for us in terms of what we're doing? How do you think we can contribute? Just let us know if we're doing the right things, and we're seeking words of encouragement hopefully from you.
I'm a keen supporter, of organizations that are always looking to drive impact on the continent. I think Get Funded is, it's playing its part in terms of, building and supporting this continent. I think where I think that we can do quite a lot is looking at, how do we take the learnings that you've picked up across, and I know you do quite a lot of work around West Africa. How do we pollinate that across and work with different organizations, or either in East Africa or Southern Africa? I know Africa tends to get to this point where we become very fragmented.
Yes.
But I know, Get Funded does quite a lot of work across the continent. I know we're also in discussions to look at, how do we partner together? But I'm excited for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Somets. We really appreciate your time. We really appreciate your insights. We hope that, and we believe that the audience is going to learn a lot. You've also made us realize that Microsoft is doing a lot of things, and they're actually available to even those who think, they might not have known previously, startups, founders. And I'm sure that we'll be hearing a lot more from you in the future, like you said. Perhaps there are one or two partnerships that Reinventing Africa and Microsoft I might be working on, and I guess everybody will know much more about this in due course. Somets, once again, thank you so much. We wish you all the best. We hope that COVID ends so that you can get back into the groove of your favorite pastime, which is traveling. And right, so thank you once again.
All right, thank you so much, Tunji.
Thank you.
Cheers. All right. Cheers.